This week, I came across something in the most dramatic sense, revolutionary. For context, I'm a pretty big fan of the KonMari method in that the objects that surround you should bring about positive energy. And the non-essential items that don't should be thanked and donated or passed along in some way. And I think a lot of artists can relate to wanting a space that brings joy and inspiration to their work. Along the same vein, it's so important that my room represents who I am by showcasing the things I love and the things that entice me towards creating. And following the KonMari method, for the past 4 years, I've been going through every single item I own at least twice a year and donating the items I don't need or love. Because living in excess has proven to do more harm than good mental health-wise. But if I were fully embracing the KonMari method, why am I constantly finding more items to let go of? Maybe a portion of it is falling out of love with certain items that once sparked something. But the main reason is that I've been just a teeny bit obsessed with online shopping. And on the majority of cases, at the end of an hour or 2 hour long browsing session, I don't even end up buying anything. So I just spend a lot of time and use up the bulk of that day's willpower in resisting the urge to check out. Then, of course, there are the moments when I cave and follow through with a purchase. Typically, when I'm laying in bed around midnight scrolling through my phone, I convince myself that this set of watercolors will bring my art to the next level, despite already owning 5 different sets. Or that this book about learning perspective will be so much easier to follow than the other 2 books I have, yet have never read. I mean, art and learning are part of personal development. These aren't mindless purchases, they're investments, right? Well, not if they take up space and collect dust. Not to mention trigger guilt whenever I glance at them. Yeah, not really in the business of sparking joy. In light of these revelations, I stumbled across the idea of a no-buy or no-spend year, which is, in essence, an entire year where rather than purchasing items just because they're on sale and I should probably stock up, or this is the one thing that will change my life, my creativity, my happiness, you instead resist the temptation to buy that zucchini spiralizer that you just can't live without, and stick to the essentials. Of course, the essentials mean different things to different people, and it's up to you on how you'd like to define this word. For me, they're of course the items I need to live a satisfying day-to-day life in the most simple of terms. For example, gas, toiletries, groceries, car maintenance, and I'm adding Netflix and Spotify to the list because I pay for my entire family, and both have become a part of our satisfying baselines. Plus, I don't want to do them dirty by canceling the subscriptions. Rules vary within a no-buy or no-spend year. Some choose to use, say, gift cards as they please, while others treat gift cards as cash. So what they wouldn't purchase with their hard-earned money, they wouldn't buy with a gift card either. Some choose not to eat out and instead meal prep, while others set some restrictions or no restrictions on this. I love that you decide what's important to you and you live by it rather than a no-buy year being some tag that everyone needs to follow in a very specific manner. Otherwise they're quote-unquote cheating. Because at the end of the day, this is your journey and yours alone. And naturally, you take away what you put in. I'll add a link to a video that inspired my decision to pursue a no-buy year. It's by a YouTuber named Haley Evans, and is by far the most sincere and compelling video I've seen within the past year. So I highly recommend that you check it out. Apart from sticking with the essentials, I'd also like to make exceptions for the items I've been meaning to purchase for a very long time now, but just haven't bit the bullet yet. For example, a Canon Mark II G7X camera, which I've actually had my eye on for about 3 years now. The current camera I have is over 8 years old and it's treated me very well, but over time, picture quality and image stabilization have relatively decreased just because of all of the great tech that's currently available. And I know I'm going to buy it eventually, so I don't want to restrict myself. Another thing I've wanted for most of my life, and this is a big one, but it's health related, laser eye surgery. I have terrible vision, -7 on both eyes with a slight stigmatism, and I hate wearing glasses. They frustrate me so much. So I wear contacts nearly every day, and I actually have for the past 8 years. It's just time to go for it. And I acknowledge that it's a hefty expense, but for something that'll improve the quality of my life for the remainder of it, I'd say it's pretty worth it. And an oddly specific item, a throw blanket to tie my room together. And it's so close to being completed. I'm at the point where I'm 90% satisfied with my room setup. So once everything is sorted, I'll film an art bedroom tour, and I'm really excited to show you guys because I poured my heart into this space. So stay tuned for that. And finally, throughout the past couple of weeks, I've been obsessed with hunting for vintage art supplies from various local thrift stores. It's giving me such a kick, and the whole journey has been so exciting and uplifting, even when I come out empty-handed. There's so much history and sentiment involved in vintage supplies, and it's just something that I have a strong interest in. So far, I've walked out with 2 vintage eagle and barrel colored pencil sets that are between 40 to 50 years old. One was 50 cents and the other was 25 cents. So it's not like I'm dropping an arm and a leg for these. Also, FYI, I'm filming all of my thrifting journeys, so videos to come. These are my exception areas, which means no more thrifted empty picture frames. And yes, that's been a theme this year. No random trinkets or knickknacks, no spontaneous trips to Winners in search for who knows what, and absolutely no shopping at Michael's, with the exception of replacing things that I already have. For example, if I use up all of my white acrylic paint, I'll allow myself to buy a replacement. This rule, of course, goes for shampoo, everyday makeup and face creams, etc. Now, the term art supply hoarder is not something you'd likely describe me as if you take a look at what I have, and I'll go into more details about the supplies I own in my future room tour, but here's a quick overview.
This IKEA cart holds the majority of my art supplies here, and I'll just show you real quick. So, I have this sketchbook, my 100% handmade cotton sketchbook, which I filmed a review of. So I'll link that down below. I have this other sketchbook, which I haven't touched in God knows how long. Strathmore Vision sketchbook. I use it on occasion. This is my Moleskine watercolor sketchbook. Haven't used that in a long time. My go-to watercolor palette. Handmade watercolors from Etsy. More handmade watercolors from Etsy. I have my Kuretake God's Eye set, which I don't even like. I have these pastel watercolors that I got from AliExpress, which I swatched and I never touched again. My 132 Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, and I have I forget how many, but I think it's a 60 set of Scholars, which I don't really use often. My acrylic paints are in these 2 bags here. I have some pastels, which I use to make watercolors, and I haven't used them since because I don't even like pastels. I have some pastel colored pencils, which I haven't touched. Some watercolor brush markers, which I haven't touched since I got them. I swatched them once and put them away. Artix acrylic markers, also haven't touched. I decided, I love that this thing is on wheels. I used to have all my art supplies on this thing here. I wasn't able to pull it out, otherwise it would scratch my floors, but love this. So I have 2 sets of gouache. I have the Artix set and the Himimaya set, and I wasn't even using this one, but then I saw this one and I was like, I have to get it, but why? So yeah, this is just a quick overview. I have more art supplies over there on that side, and I'll show you in a whole art room tour, but I don't even use half of this stuff. Why do I have it, and why do I want to buy more? It's a little crazy. So as you can see, I don't have too many supplies, but I still think it's excessive. Like, I don't need all of this.
I have a solid amount of supplies, a set of acrylics, oils, colored pencils, and admittedly a few watercolor sets. I have supplies for every medium and then some. I will admit that probably half of my art supplies were purchased on impulse. Some I've barely touched within the course of a year, and it's tough because there are so many art supply companies popping up out of nowhere. Now, I love watching reviews and unboxing videos of new products. There's something so satisfying about them. At times, it fulfills my desire of actually going out and buying something. And I also have a couple of items, including handmade watercolors from Etsy, that I'm planning to review myself. But there have also been many occasions where I'll watch a review of brand new, say, soft core colored pencils, and the desire to order a set hits me before I realize that I already have 132 Prismacolor Premiers that I use twice a month. I have to talk myself out of buying something I have absolutely no need for. Where's the logic in that? I love that there are so many companies offering affordable products that are great quality at their price points, but lately I found it to be a bit overwhelming. Not to mention the number of art subscription boxes out there, where in all honesty, the recipient of these items probably won't even use 80% of what's in the box after swatching them out once and putting them away. And no hate on art subscription boxes. The idea of getting a set of supplies each month is exciting, especially when there's that air of mystery. It's a neat idea, and it's cool that they push you to try out different art forms. But is it really the best or most effective method to go about that? And yes, in many cases, their total retail price surpasses what you would actually spend on the boxes, but do they really save you money if you don't even end up using half of the materials? Again, no hate, just something to think about. I love both giving and receiving gifts, so the idea of having a little surprise delivered to your door each month is exciting. I definitely see the appeal, but I also see the repercussions. Generally speaking, there's such a strong push to buy. And from my own perspective, it's completely overtaken me on so many occasions. I'm on the edge of exhaustion. This year, I really want to live intentionally. And I know, what the heck does that even mean? Well, I think it means something entirely different to each and every one of us. To me, it means being in control of how I spend my time, who I spend it with, and my entire thought process. I don't want to live on anyone else's terms but my own, and I especially don't want to lose myself in the desire to have more. It's so easy to forget about the things I have, and instead I spend more of my time hyper-focused on the things that I don't. So, TED Talk aside, I'd like to use this space to shine light on my go-to art supplies, my favorites, the art materials that have always been there for me. If nothing else, to remind myself that I already have all of the supplies that I'll ever need. Because rather than constantly looking at what else I can buy, I'm going to spend this year being grateful for what I already have. Oh, cue an Amazon package. He is waiting. Okay. Wow, nice timing. I swear that's not my package. I'm pretty sure that's my brother's. Anyways, where was I? The centerpiece of my materials is my set of 36 Mei Liang Pretty Excellent watercolors. This set is my one true love. It is one of the most affordable, high-quality student-grade watercolor sets you can find. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Many other creators share this sentiment. I've used the set for about a year and a half, and it still has many years left in it. The colors are rich. Many of them are actually light fast. The tin is high quality, it's not plastic. It's just an incredible set of watercolors, and I'd recommend it to anyone and everyone in the beginner or intermediate stage. The next supply I stand by wholeheartedly is my glorious Sharpie pen. This is the best, most reliable, and consistent fine liner that I have ever had the pleasure of working with. Not to mention, it's very accessible, which is also important. At a whopping $3 Canadian for a pack of 2, you can find the Sharpie pen at just about every Walmart, Target, and Staples out there. I usually pair this fine liner with the Faber-Castell Artist Pitt pen, specifically in size small, if I'm looking to line smaller details. Both of these items have been my go-to inking tools for the past 2 years. The paper I've grown to love is the Arteza Expert watercolor paper. This has only been in my life for a few months, but has completely won me over. It's so pleasant to work with, especially for my style of art, which tends to rely on flat washes and mixed media. I find 100% cotton water paper just to be a bit more difficult to work with, and much less forgiving, which is likely my lack of skill speaking more than anything else. But as of this moment, it's the perfect fit. I can't ask for anything more. In terms of brushes, I adore the Montmartre acrylic brushes that I actually use for watercolors, purchased in a set from Winners of all places. They sell these on Amazon as well, link below by the way. I've only ever worked with synthetic brushes, and I appreciate how well they keep their form, even after being left in my jar of water overnight. The Jelly Roll white gel pen is my absolute favorite as far as white gel pens go. I've had 2 Uniball Signos that both dried up on me without notice. I find the Jelly Roll to be much more reliable, and it just sits on top of other mediums so well. The Signo tends to clog up a bit more easily based on my experience with it. Not to mention, the Jelly Roll is just a bit more affordable. And finally, for adding texture to my watercolor pieces, I actually prefer Prismacolor Scholars to Premiers because their cores are very buttery but not as soft, so easier to control and work with. They sell Scholars at Walmart and on Amazon. They're definitely pricier than Crayolas, but much more affordable than the Premier line. Now, I have favorite supplies in specific categories or mediums that are listed in the description of all of my videos if you're curious, like my go-to acrylic paints and sketchbooks, but I wanted to reserve this video for the items that really have my back and that have been there for me in 2020 and onwards. I'm looking forward to seeing how things change throughout the year, and will definitely film a follow-up to my no-spend year at the midway point. Perhaps an earlier follow-up as I redefine my goals and figure out my no-buy rules. So if that's something that you're interested in hearing more about, then please let me know in the comments. Early next year, I want to revisit my Holy Grail art supplies to see if anything changes. In November, I bought and received 2 sets of handmade watercolors for my birthday, so perhaps one of those will creep onto my list. I'm also in the process of making my own watercolor paints, so maybe I'll start to fall in love with my own creations. I have a Pentel Pocket Brush pen that I barely played with last year, so there's a chance that that can replace my Sharpie pen as my top inking tool. Who really knows? What's important is that I stop searching for art supplies to satisfy some void, or using the act of buying more supplies as a way to validate me as an artist. I need to stop putting more time into browsing online and watching reviews than actually, creating art. I have an entire roster of materials to play with, and I'm ready to set aside my needless impulses to want the world and then some, and instead develop both my creativity and sense of gratitude. Before opening up the floor to discussion, I want you to know that I am doing this for myself, and I'm fully aware that everyone is on their own path as well. But my art supplies morphing from just the necessities to a total hoard pile put a strain on my relationship to art, which is at the core of why I decided to take a step back. Every artist comes from a different place, and perhaps building your own collection may very well bring about nothing but positive emotions, similar to how finding thrifted vintage supplies makes me feel. It's something that truly energizes me. It gives me a reason to get out in the world. And if that's the case, then good on you. Do your thing like nobody's watching. Overall, I hope you enjoyed this chat. And whether you decide to follow along or if your opinion sits on the opposite side of the spectrum, I would love to hear from you. What's your relationship with your art supplies, and are you satisfied with where you stand in this regard? Please let me know your thoughts on the subject, whether or not you've heard of or even attempted a no-spend year. I really want to hear what you guys think, and I'm looking forward to the differing opinions and levels of discussion that will hopefully be shared in the comments. As usual, thank you so much for watching. If you want more information on the actual art piece and my process, then feel free to read the comments below. And if I may be so bold, subscribe if you haven't already. Like, dislike this video, do you. And until next time, stay creative, stay grateful, peace.